Welcome to the Supported Living Property Podcast with your host, me, Lisa Brown, the place to learn about supported living property investing. Hi Sarah, it's great to have you here today. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I was just saying it's really sunny here. I've had to draw the curtains. It seems a bit.
Yeah, I've had to do the same here. You feel awful, like shutting the lovely weather out. But yeah, it's really bad for glare, isn't it? It's not the best.
It's not good.
It's a complete white ghost otherwise. So yeah.
So Sarah, for people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people a bit about you?
Yeah, so I am Sarah Czuba. I live in Leeds and predominantly invest in the Leeds area, the South Leeds area. I am 40. I've got 2 children, and that's about it, I think. I don't know if I missed anything.
No, not at all. So you and supported living, you've been in property for a while, have you, Sarah? Is it a relatively new thing for you, or?
I've been in property for a long time, actually. You wouldn't believe it based on how youthful I look, but I have actually been in property for about 20 years, and I do owe a lot of that to my mum. My mum got me into property in my early 20s. She saw that I had a corporate job and I had probably more disposable income than I needed, and I was probably wasting too much of it on designer shoes and handbags. So she said, actually, let's make some good investments together. So we bought some properties together, my mum and my sister and myself. It was not strategic. There was no strategy to it. There was no theory. It was literally done on the back of a fag packet. Obviously now I've been trained and I know a lot more than I did then. We didn't do it the right way, but we managed to build up a fairly decent portfolio between us, and it allowed us to kind of have some kind of cash flow coming through. But we really did it it was more of a pension pot. That's kind of how my mum set us off down that route. So yeah, I've been doing like what I would class as standard, fairly vanilla buy-to-lets, quite small, around 100 grand. And then 2 years ago, I went full-time into property, set up my business, which is Home Bird Property. Just before the pandemic started, which was great timing. So I got made redundant from work, and I decided that actually the property business that I built up so far had always been a bit of a distraction, really, and I'd never really put a lot of effort into it, but it still generated quite good money. So it dawned on me, how can I scale this up? How can I do this full time? Because I really like it, I enjoy it, and that's when I decided to go full time into property.
Amazing. That's cool. Your mum sounds very wise. It sounds very useful.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but she is. Yeah.
So obviously we talk about supported living here. So what was your experience with supported living? Tell us about that.
So the first project that I did for supported living, it's a bit of an unusual story, actually. So when I did go into property full time and I made that jump, I recognised that I didn't have professional training and there was lots of gaps in my knowledge. So I did go in, I did get myself trained. I came back from the training and actually I was having my own kitchen fitted in my own house. I was having some big renovations, and my kitchen fitter said to me, what do you do, love, type thing? And I was like, I'm a property investor. I felt awful even just kind of saying those words. Like,
the first few times you say it, yeah.
Yeah, you just like, I know I meant to own this title right now, but I didn't really feel like I could. So I said, I'm a property investor, I've been training and everything, I'm just sort of starting out my own business. So he said, you need to meet my mate Craig. So that's what I did, made contact with Craig, and Craig was brilliant, really helpful. We had some initial chats, and basically he took me under his wing to mentor me. We sort of had an arrangement which I suggested that I would go and work in his letting agents for free, just doing really like me, odd jobs and stuff, not really lots to be honest, but just learn from him, like shadow him around, look at his projects, kind of just be in that environment to learn. So that was really good. And the supported living provider literally walked through the door. They came in and they said, we're looking for Craig, we've been told that he's really big in the area. And Craig said, I ain't got time at the minute, I've got to do something else. He was after a meeting. Sarah will deal with you. And it literally kind of went from there. I'd obviously heard a lot about supported living before. I'd been involved quite a lot in homeless charities. I've done a lot of volunteering. So it was always something that I knew I wanted to do with my property business. I always knew that I wanted to do some good with it. Obviously, it's a business and it needs to make money, but I always wanted to try and give something back to the community, try and make a positive impact. Particularly leave a legacy for my children and that sort of thing. So obviously when that charity worked through the door and we got chatting. I mean, I nurtured that relationship probably for nearly 2 years, just bit by bit. And in essence, they were a new charity and they didn't have any housing, and a lot of people weren't prepared to take them on because they were new. But I just said to them, well, I'm new and you're new, so let's just hold hands and, you know, take a leap of faith and help each other. Like, let's just see if we can make it happen. So, you know, that's pretty much how Fantastic. I kind of went into supported living.
I love it because there's so many random things. It's often when you're talking to people, it is a really odd connection like that, or something happens. So, you know, but you were putting yourself in the right position at the right time as well, weren't you? You went, you know, to do that. So, you know, brilliant. And so what happened from there? So you'd obviously found these guys and they were looking for property. Did you then go looking for properties together? Is that what happened, or did you?
We didn't look together as such. So we sat down, we had quite a few meetings, obviously kind of getting to know each other, getting to understand the charity and kind of what their goals, mission, aims was, what they were trying to achieve. We did talk numbers, obviously, because I basically said to them, look, if you can give me an idea of what you think you'd be prepared to pay, then I can reverse engineer any of the deals that I've got and we can see if we can make it work. So I basically was sort of given it's a fairly detailed, not too detailed, like a shopping list basically, and I just said, right, I'll go shopping for you. And obviously it took time. We did lots of I did lots of shopping. I predominantly did it on my own because obviously they were busy running the charity, but I'd check in with them, you know, regularly. And then I said, oh, I think I found something. Obviously didn't want to say too much until I'd actually managed to secure it. I didn't want to get anybody's hopes up. But then when I did manage to secure the vets, then obviously I made contact with them and said, look, this is what I've managed to secure. This is how I think it would work out. It was a veterinary surgery on the ground floor, and it was a 2-bed apartment on the first floor already, 2-bed flat type thing. And I had the vision that I would turn it into a 6-bed HMO with ensuite and communal kitchen.
Fantastic. And that's what they were looking for, presumably. That's why you'd done that.
Yeah, I mean, they were looking, there was like a couple of pronged attacks. Like, they were looking for self-contained flats. They were also looking for HMO. But I think that we agreed that really probably the first property on their list would be, I think their strategy was and still is that they'd put them into communal living. So a 6-bed HMO or some 4-bed, whatever. And then long term they would look to progress those people into self-contained flats, like as
what kind of tenants are they in the property?
So they're very loosely categorized as vulnerable women. So it's a real mix of women who've fallen on hard times for various reasons. Some are like victims of domestic abuse. Some have kind of chosen a not so good path and kind of got into situations that they don't want to be into. So it is a real mixed bag, really, but it is a women only kind of charity. And that was another thing that I had the really big connection with the charity, is the fact that they made me aware of the statistics that the number of supported living providers or available housing for women is, you know, by nowhere near the demand versus men. So obviously, being a woman myself, they were 2 women. It was just something that I could, you know, that I could relate to. So, and a cause that I wanted to champion and get behind.
And then doing the adaptation to the property, did you have to do any specific adaptations because of the tenant group that were going to be in there, or was it?
No, not really. So it wasn't anything in terms of like disabled access or anything like that. The project was a back to brick project, so we did completely rip out the inside of the vets, and yeah, so there's lots of pictures on social media of me being covered in all sorts of stuff. So we did completely go back to brick. We put the en-suites in there for 2 reasons, really. One, if I'm completely honest, was a bit of a security blanket for me, because I knew that if the supported living route didn't work long term, then actually renting from a private perspective, the en-suites would be easier to rent, and it's more kind of, it's sort of expected now. I think the standard of HMOs has gone up a lot over the time, so I put that in and really is a kind of bit of an insurance net for me. Obviously,
really
I didn't.
Wise. Yeah, it's like you need to have that alternate exit, don't you? Because until it's signed, until it's written down, you know, and actually they might change their minds in the future and not need it. So yeah.
So, and obviously it was good for them as well that they were able to sell to the, you know, the clients they had, not they had to sell it, but their clients would have their own bathroom. So they also felt like that would reduce arguments within the house and any, you know, that sort of thing, because everyone had their own private space as opposed to a shared communal bathroom. So they also did see the positive of kind of doing that. So yeah, there wasn't any specific adaptations. The whole project was just a full-on refurb.
And when it came to negotiating the lease with the providers, obviously these were relatively new providers from what you're saying, so it was probably the first time they'd had to negotiate a lease like this. How did that go? Was that difficult?
Yeah, it was interesting, obviously, because it was a bit like the blind leading the blind, really. Like, neither of us particularly knew. We did use, obviously we've both got independent legal advice. I'll be honest, a lot of it was driven through the solicitors advised about break clauses, you know, covering the cost of damages and those sort of things, and the term and things like that. I did make connections with the broker. Obviously you'll know yourself from doing supported living, and I'm sure we'll come on to it later, but there isn't as many lenders for supported living, and some lenders can be quite specific about your contract and your lease. So I did run my lease by my broker, who ran it by my lender. Provisionally, obviously, they didn't officially sign it off, but they cast their eye over it to make sure that they were happy with the lease. I was always of the view that a longer lease would be better, but actually the feedback that came back was that their optimum lease time was anywhere between 3 and 5 years. So we actually went down a 3-year route on this particular lease, which surprised me.
Yeah, which is frustrating, isn't it? Because if you're being offered a longer lease on something like this, you think that was great, I'll jump on that.
Yeah. I think I was told that it's to do with the lenders, like, you know, should there be issues morally, they wouldn't really want to be evicting anybody. So actually the 3 to 5 years probably a sweet spot where it's mitigating risk, isn't it? I get that.
Yeah, I think it's because they don't understand it, but I can bang on about that. People have heard me bang on about that on other podcasts, so I won't do it here. But
no, I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all.
I think it's nuts, to be honest, but there we go. But yeah, that is what they say. That's their justification. And then handing the property over, was that fairly straightforward, the process of handing it over once it was finished? Was that
ish? It was they were chomping at the bit to get in, is the, you know, they wouldn't mind me saying that. They'd made connections within their fields about getting, you know, the clients, and as always, like, you know, things can always take a bit longer. So yeah, it was very, very, it felt very rushed at the end, as in, you know, like, got the contract signed on the Thursday and they were already building furniture on the Thursday night, so it was a bit manic. But we did manage a little ribbon ceremony where they held the ribbon and we cut it, so we did, you know, we did mark that occasion, and it was a big, and you know, it was a big milestone for both of, you know, for myself and the 2 ladies and the charity. It was, you know, it was a big achievement that we had a goal, we had a vision. It wasn't a straightforward road to get there. It was hard. There was ups and downs, but we did get there, and we did celebrate it, and we did feel really proud that we did manage to get it over the line. But there wasn't time to do much drinking and celebrating, because the clients were coming thick and fast. So it was like, quick, get them in. But you know, that's fine. It's better that way than it being sat there empty and then not having the rooms filled and stuff. But it was very, very
shows
quick.
how much need there is for the property.
Exactly. So it was full very, very, very quickly. I think the paint was probably still a bit wet.
And how's it going now? How is it? When did you hand it over? How long ago was that?
October.
Right.
October last year. So
and we're now in May, aren't we? So
yeah, so it's going really well. It is going well. It's not without its challenges. Obviously they signed a commercial lease, so in theory, I love the word in theory, completely hands off, and I don't need to do anything. And most part of that is true. I did receive a picture yesterday from somebody who happened to be driving past my property, and there was a smashed window, which wasn't what I wanted to wake up to. But you know, I've got a good relationship with the charity. I got in touch with them. They didn't know anything about it either. Obviously, they were straight round there. They do have CCTV at the property at the front and the back, and in the communal area. So they were able to go through that and kind of fully understand what's happened. And obviously a replacement will be ordered and things like that. So we have had police at the property as well, which again isn't really what you want to hear. But that is and actually when it all came out, it was actually nothing to do with anybody in the house. It was somebody else who the police thought were there. And I think because the police kind of know that the charity have a really good working relationship with the police, but I think which can work on in some ways, but I think also it can work in other ways, that they might go to them first thinking, you know, there's something happening there. So yeah, so overall,
does that mean any problems with neighbours and stuff, or have the neighbours been quite supportive?
Well, this is the other thing. So the property is an end terrace, which is good. It's an end terrace, so we only really have contact neighbours on one side, and there's actually a kind of a road in, you know, at the end. When we did the project, as soon as I did go to the neighbours and explained what I was planning to do. I took them some gifts, some cards, and obviously said to them, like, if the noise for the refurb, I was conscious of the refurb, basically. These people have been there for like 30 odd years. They were a fairly elderly couple. So I must admit, I found that hard on the emotion. I was like, oh God, if this was my grandparents, I wouldn't want this happening to them. So I found that really difficult to process, but I just kind of did whatever I could with them. Like they had my number, and I said, look, if at all it's any problem, please just get in touch. You know, the guys are usually pretty good. They don't start, you know, bashing around until, you know, a decent hour in the morning, and they wouldn't really be doing, you know, noisy work at night, and they don't work the weekends. And so we were trying to be really considerate of the neighbours. They heard rumours that the house was going to be for paedophiles.
Right.
So obviously that was quite alarming for them. They had grandchildren and things like that. So they weren't, and which obviously I've assured them that isn't what the charity is about at all. It is complete and utter rubbish. That is just somebody either maliciously spreading a rumour or getting the wrong end of the stick and putting a different spin on it. And I saw they met with the charity. They knew the two ladies. They've done a lot as well to kind of keep the neighbours on board. But I'm sure they weren't really appreciative of a police van being there, and also a smashed windows. Obviously not ideal either.
But it sounds like the charity is good at sorting stuff out, is quite proactive, and
and that's like 2 incidents over 6 months, isn't it? So it's not you know, it's not like it's every day or every week or anything like that. And also we always knew there was going to be teething problems. Like, it's the first property for them. They've been quite firm and strict with their policy in terms, you know, they've got a code of conduct with their clients, and if that client isn't sticking to that, then they will be politely asked to leave. And I know they have done that with some tenants, so they're still kind of finding their feet. So hopefully it's just the odd occasion as opposed to regularly. But that, I guess you could have that with any tenant, whether it's supported living or not. That could happen to any. I don't think it's supported living specific.
No,
that's just tenants, I think.
It's just life, isn't it? Life happens, you know.
Of course it is.
You know, so going forward, have you got plans to work with them again, or what are your plans going forward now?
Yeah, I would like to continue to work with them. I've just recently actually posted on social media last week that the vet has completely finished, because I didn't feel like I could celebrate until I'd managed to do the remortgage. And you know, that is probably the downs. I think I've already spoken a little bit about that, but
how was the refinance? Was that a challenge then?
It was okay. It was my first refinance of this type, other than like a standard buy to let, so I didn't really have anything to base it on. The lender had me jumping through a lot of hoops. They were quite specific. They wanted to know a lot of detail. They were very thorough with the contract. They were very thorough with the insurance. There was lots of detail that they asked for. When I had it valued, the first valuation I had, I got a 0 valuation, and I was heartbroken. I was just like, I cannot believe.
What grounds did they do that then?
The valuer said, his exact words were, "Not all lenders will lend to supported living." To which I was like, yes, I know that. That is why I have chosen a specialist lender who knows I'm leasing to a supported living provider. He's fully on board with that. You're not there to value that. You're there to value. It was a bricks and mortar valuation. You're there to value that. You know, there were a few choice words in my head, like just do your job, please. Just value it as it is.
Frustrating.
So this is what I mean. So this was like, oh no. Anyway, obviously the lender, actually, fair play to the lender actually sent the surveyor back out and said, we know this, do your job. Okay. Value it. I didn't have to do that. Great. They did that. So they went, in theory, they went back out. They didn't go back out. They said they went back out, but they never asked me for access again, which is good as well, because this is the other thing, because my tenants were already in. Actually, like, to get the ladies out, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to shout them all like bacon butties down the calf, just to, you know, because of course the valuation was at 9 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, there's little things that we can kind of do to keep everybody sweet, and obviously whiz around, make sure everything's nice and tidy, which it was. They did a great job with that. So anyway, when they valued it the second time, they valued it as a 5-bed HMO rather than a 6-bed HMO, because they said that one of the rooms was something like half a centimetre too small to pass HMO regulations. Even though I had a HMO license, the HMO officer had already inspected it, and I already had a 6-bed HMO license. Obviously it was a 6-bed. So I did end up leaving a bit more money in the deal than I wanted to, 20,000 to be specific, because they valued it as a 5-bed HMO and not 6-bed HMO. Right. Tried to contest it, but I think in the end you just get worn down. It's just like, oh, do you know what? So £20,000 a lot of money, but it's £20,000 left in the asset. It's in there. Yeah, you know, I can't go through this process again right now. I don't want to do that to the charity either, having to do more surveys and just dragging out the process. Obviously I had investors that I wanted to get paid back, so it was my money. It would be me that would take the hit. It would be me that would leave the 20,000 in, and I made a decision that, you know, just leave it in. Yeah, something to go with. Yeah. Brilliant. It sounds like so going forward you're going to look to do some more work with them. So I kind of didn't answer the question. It's great. No. So the money's come back out. So as obviously I've already talked about, I had left 20,000 more in than I wanted to, but I've got money that's come out, and I've just reached back out to them and just said, look, I'm assuming that the demand is still there. Are you still wanting? I know I could have been looking, I could have been filling my pipeline beforehand, but I think because this was my first commercial conversion, it was my first supported living, I wanted to do it full circle before I kind of went and did it again. So yes, I'm in talks with them. Also potentially another charity. I do have another buy-to-let property, and they came to look at that. And so it's a slightly different charity. It's more of a charity with adults with medical basically they need to be supervised, so it might be that they have epilepsy, so they might tend to fit quite a bit. So it's I've just basically started working with scoping out what they're looking for and how we might be able to work together in the future, which again is another great thing, that I could help a different type of person. And also, again, from a selfish perspective, not wanting to put all my eggs in one basket, it would be good to have 2 different charities to be able to help. So yeah, I'm exploring all options. Exciting. That's brilliant. Thank you. We'll look forward to hearing about those. We'll drop your contact details into the show notes. Is there anything you think for property investors, anything from the experiences that you've learned that you think, oh, I wish I'd known that at the beginning, or any advice or anything you think you could share with anyone? I think it's not as easy as people make it look. I think you have to be fairly resilient, tenacious, you know, persistent with it. You do come across hurdles, but I think if you're collaborative, if you come from the right place, like, actually it isn't always about money. You know, remember, kind of sometimes when I see a lot of supported living posts and things, not always, but people kind of bang home about the numbers, and yes, the numbers are important, of course, it's a business and it is there to make money, but I wouldn't ever want that to take away the shine of what you're actually trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. So I think that's probably would be my piece of advice to people, is that, you know, numbers come second and kind of people kind of come first, is what I would say. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. As I said, we'll drop your contact details into the show notes, so if anyone wants to get in contact with you, they can there. And thank you ever so much for sharing your experience. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for asking. I was I was like, me? I haven't got anything that I can. Obviously, I've
You've got
managed to fill.
loads. Look at all that.
I've managed to fill half an hour, I think. So, but
brilliant.
I do really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about it. So, thank you, Lisa. Thanks for that.
Great. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
See you later.